You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hey, I'm Joe, and I'm a composer and a musician.
That's why we call you the maestro. And I'm Will. I'm a literal doctor.
But don't trust this guy with your ailments.
No, I study comic books, but it still counts.
We're a couple of creative kids who host a podcast called Common Creatives.
We dig deep into filmmakers, musicians, books, and characters, really all types of artistic works and the people who make them.
We break apart the art we love to see what makes it tick.
Basically, we give you the definitive take on whatever or whoever we're discussing. All opinions are definitive and final.
So check out Common Creatives wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Eleventylife podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Eleventylife. For those of you who don't know, earlier this year in 2020, our band Eleventyseven released a brand new album called Basic Glitches, and it was funded entirely by our fan base via Kickstarter. Now, one of the ways that you could support the release of this record was to purchase your very own Eleventylife episode. And I'm so glad that we put that up there because we were able to have some amazing, fun conversations with Eleventy fans that we normally would not have been able to have, especially during the time of Corona when touring has been non-existent for us and for a whole lot of other bands across the country, across the world. So if you're a fan of Eleventylife, consider this some bonus content. It is not like the other episodes of Eleventylife where we have very specific things, topics, and subjects that we want to talk about and explore. This is literally just candid conversations of me talking with fans of Eleventy, finding out a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. You guys all know that the world of Eleventy fandom is full of some of the most interesting and fun people on the planet. And on today's episode, I get to sit down with the one and only Stephen Shutters. He is part of the Eleventylife community and friends with lots of you, and he was kind enough to give me a little peek into what his day-to-day life is like, especially during the time of Corona, and we even got to compare notes on some ex-girlfriends that we've had, so that was fun. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to Stephen. Thank you so much for letting me have this little glimpse into your life, and a huge shout out to everybody else that's a part of this wonderful, beautiful community of people that make up the Eleventylife Facebook group, that make up the Eleventyseven fandom. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I feel so honored and so grateful that we're able to share in your lives, even in these really small and seemingly insignificant ways. I love you guys. You make the world a better place, a more colorful place, and I'm a better person for knowing all of you. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this conversation with Stephen. So buckle up and enjoy this bonus episode of Conversations with Fans.
Hey, man.
Hey, dude.
How are you?
I am doing great. It is... Oh.
Ooh.
So professional over here. That's... Oh, man. Cool. Man, you're looking great in the time of Corona.
Oh, well, so are you. Thanks.
I am not looking great right now. I don't think I've ever had this much facial hair before in my life. And so, because I have nowhere to go and no pride to take in my appearance whatsoever, I'm growing it out and just seeing exactly how straight out the trailer I can become.
Yeah. I like it. I've never seen you with facial hair like that before either. So
it's a brave new world that we're embarking on.
You just referenced Huxley not that long ago.
Oh my gosh! Wow, look at you. That was completely just like a mental slip on my part. But yeah, I think about Huxley often. Are you good with levels and everything on your end?
I am on my end. Do I sound loud enough on your end?
You sound great. And because you're using a mic, it's your FaceTime is great. Do you play anything?
Yeah. I try. I actually, it's probably a year or more ago, I posted a song on the Eleventylife Facebook page, but mostly guitar.
Awesome.
very shoddily. Kind of am teaching myself over the years, and so I feel like everything I do on it is really different, I guess, than other people approach it, because I don't have the same like foundation for learning it.
Well,
so,
you and I are probably very similar in that way. There's still times where if I come down to the studio and try to start something, I'm feeling a little bit like, not super inspired. I'll go onto YouTube and just find somebody who's teaching guitar lessons or who is doing like piano lessons. And I'll literally just watch like beginner lessons on the piano or guitar, just because it'll get me thinking about it in a totally different way. I appreciate those kinds of things. Yeah. So how are you doing right now with everything, with the world being as fucking crazy as it is?
Yeah, man, it's a fucking mess right now. I'm doing great, honestly. The difficult part for me in all this is just not working. It's really hard for contractors and 1099 people out there.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I've been enjoying it. Luckily, I'm pretty introverted, so that helps. But I've been outside, ironically, a lot the past couple of weeks, out on like hiking trails and just enjoying the sun and lack of people.
Are you and I really close to each other?
So I'm in Atlanta. Well, I'm a little north of Atlanta. I'm like an hour north of Atlanta. So I'm like 3 hours from Asheville.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I'm there all the time. My tattoo guy is in Asheville, and I have friends in Asheville. Actually, I think you've met my friend Leah before. She had lunch with you, I think, and Anna Solomon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. It's all coming back. Yeah, they were very, very sweet girls. I feel like I still see Anna pop up every now and then on the Twitters and the internet. Whatever other things are on the internet.
Right.
So you guys are friends, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We started as internet music friends several years ago. So
yeah,
concert buddies.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. What were some of the first concerts that you went to?
That's a good question. So years ago, I think we first realized each other existed in like 2013 or 14. And that was through Reliant K.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it was right when their album Collapsible Lung came out, and that was a big deal to a lot of people, including myself.
Sure.
Because it was not what anyone expected, musically or lyrically. But so we met then, but as far as actual concerts, I'm trying to remember. We've seen like Half Alive. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard. She lives in Kentucky, so and I have a terrible memory. So
yes, I definitely am feeling myself, especially right now, because everything's kind of thrown off, and all of my habits and everything are a little bit different now since all the Corona stuff started happening. I forget things, like I'll just be walking around the house. I'll have had my phone in my hand or some instrument or something in the studio, and I'll set it down for 1 second, and 5 seconds later, I'm like, where the hell did everything go? Like, I can't find anything.
That's just normal for me.
Yeah.
Outside of Corona.
Right. Well, that's cool, man. So what would you be doing if none of this had ever happened?
Well, I work in audio video installation.
Yeah.
So when I first started, for a few years, it was almost exclusively in like mega churches.
Yeah.
Like rigging their PAs and their big auditoriums and running all the cables and building racks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Lately hasn't been so much church stuff. It's been more corporate. Well, churches are pretty corporate, but
shots fired.
It's been more like office buildings and doing like conference room setups and like skyscrapers and stuff in Atlanta and like Philadelphia, Portland, just random places. But so I was in Philly right when the stuff was going down.
Yeah.
And the plan was to drive into New York City and work a couple days in Philly, then have a couple days off in Philly, then drive over to New York City, have a couple days off there, work a couple days there, then drive to Boston, work a couple days there, have a day off there. But when I was in Philly, they locked down New York City and they started doing curfews and stuff in Philly. And so I just ended up being sent back home. So I would have had work to do, but now I haven't really had much. But
yeah, for sure. Do you miss it, or do you feel like, oh, this is a kind of a fun little break?
I miss making money. Money is helpful.
Of course.
Paying bills is nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's not nice, but being able to is nice.
Yeah.
I miss the work. It's the most fun stuff I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Tell me about that. I'm always interested in the things that people derive joy from, and a lot of joy I feel like comes from being able to do a job that you feel good at, kind of like working those parts of your brain that are really... Well,
it's funny. The way I got into it years ago was just a crazy story, I guess, but just a friend of a friend of a friend. But I didn't plan on it whatsoever. But basically, I ended up not going to college and was able to learn how to do AV installation stuff on the job, working for someone else. And so that's what I've been doing the past 6 or so years. But what I love about it is that as part of that learning on the job nature, I just feel like I'm always learning new things. I mean, technology is always progressing.
Yep.
And different clients always want different stuff and have different challenges to work around. So it's kind of always a different puzzle. And I don't know, it just never gets boring. And you can see and hear the fruits of your labor pretty clearly.
If you did your job right. Yeah. You can hear everything
so,
pretty clearly.
I don't know, it's just a good feeling of accomplishment at the end of a 3 or 14 week job to see, oh, this sounds killer and I did it. So I love that.
Oh man, that's so cool. I'm so happy that you get to experience that. I feel like if you are at a place in life where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, I would really love for my life to become more interesting. Drop out of college and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what were you originally going to college for?
Well, so I never actually, I never actually took a single college class. I started doing this before I ever even signed up for college classes whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like you're asking for the long story, so I'll give it to you.
Go for it.
So I grew up in Indiana, not originally from Atlanta. When I was in high school, my freshman year of high school, my dad got laid off because it was right around the whole 2008 recession crap.
Yes.
And so he was out searching for a job for like a year and then finally found one here in the Atlanta area. So my sophomore year of high school, we all moved to Atlanta and I hated it here because I was an emo teenager who didn't know anybody in the South.
That's high school too, right?
Right.
Like changing in the middle. Did you have a lot of friends in high school? Like, were you digging it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so in Indiana, I went to the same school and church, first grade through 9th, and had like the same class the whole time.
Yep.
So I was in a bubble and knew everybody and was very comfortable.
Not a lot of social diversity in those kinds of situations.
Right. But it was great. And then, I moved to Georgia and I hated it. But my mom is a really cool person. And so for my senior year, for my birthday present, for my senior year of high school, so my birthday is in the summer, it's in August. She let me know that she had talked with my best friend in Indiana, his mom, and basically arranged for me to live with him senior year and go back to school with all my friends and graduate with all my friends.
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up moving back to Indiana, just me, lived with my best friend senior year. And then after that, ended up just kind of floating around, worked as a janitor at my school, even after I graduated for like maybe a year.
Was that weird? Like spending so much time there, leaving, then coming back, and then like after you graduate high school, ending right back up in the same halls that you were walking up and down for so long. What was that like for you?
It was kind of cool. It was weird.
Yeah.
But it was really surreal because as a janitor, I worked third shift. So I started at 10 p.m. And worked until like 7 or 8 in the morning. So I was the only one in the building.
God.
And it was amazing. So I could just blast music through the PA and clean all night. And I really enjoyed that. Although I couldn't really live the third shift life for long. I'm a morning person and I was never able to adjust. So I eventually had to quit.
Yeah.
But so during that whole time, though, I ended up like texting someone that I had met in Georgia, a girl. And so we got, we were talking a lot. And so after, I don't know, probably another year or so floating between jobs, I decided to take a trip back down to Georgia for a couple days, just really to see the girl that I was talking with.
To see what's going to happen, to see where things are going to go. It's exciting.
Right. That was the real reason. It was disguised as going for, I think, my sister's baby shower.
Yeah.
That was the official reason.
Right.
But anyway, so I was down there a couple days and it was great. And then I started driving back home and I'd only been in the car for like 2 hours. So I got to around Chattanooga and my car started like filling with smoke. The AC vents just started flooding smoke. So I had to roll down the windows to let it out and try to pull off on the interstate. And as soon as I got out of my car trying to see what was going on, I noticed a semi driver was like a few hundred feet ahead of me, pulled over, and he was running toward me with a fire extinguisher.
Oh,
and
wow.
And he was yelling, "Get out, she's gonna blow."
Oh my God. That's terrifying.
And so I grabbed my little backpack and I ran toward him and he passed me and he unloaded his whole fire extinguisher on the front of my car and then ran back to me. And then I watched my car explode like in the movies. Yeah, I've got pictures I can send you.
Steven, what the hell happened?
It was a Walmart oil change.
This is the greatest cautionary tale I've ever heard.
So don't go to Walmart for an oil change.
What?
And don't do it with only liability insurance.
So here's what I'm trying to figure out. You get your oil change at Walmart. What could they have possibly done to fuck up your car so irreparably that it became a death trap?
I've asked this question so many times throughout the years. Especially within the few days of that happening. And I have several mechanic friends, and I really don't know much about cars, but they all seemed to say the same basic things, that they thought that they had, whoever was doing the oil change had double gasketed.
Right.
Where you drain the oil pan.
Yes.
And for some reason, I guess that would do it. I don't understand why, but that's what everyone kept saying. And that's what the one of the firefighters on the scene told me. So here's where it gets fun too.
Oh, wow.
So I had actually just filled my tank like 5 minutes before that happened. So we had to wait like a half hour for the fire to like stop burning.
Oh my God.
And it melted the guardrail and it was ridiculous. Anyway.
Jeez.
So where it happened though was on the corner of 4 different counties in Tennessee. So 4 different fire departments came out.
Oh my gosh, Steven.
And one of them was a volunteer fire department led by an 80-something-year-old man. And he was there on site.
Yes.
And so 3 of the fire departments, when I talked with them, they were all like, yeah, man, that fire started because of your oil and obviously from your oil change. And I was like, okay, well, at least I can sue, because all I had was liability insurance. So I was kind of boned.
Oh, no.
But the guy who wrote the official report was the 80-something-year-old man. Bless his heart, as we say in the South.
Of course.
And all he wrote on the report was there was a fire. That was the official report that I got in the mail. So that was not enough to sue Walmart.
Oh my gosh.
So I was just out of car completely. So anyway, when that happened, I called the girl that I had just seen the past couple days.
Yes.
And she and her dad drove up 2 hours and picked me up. And I ended up staying at their house for like a week.
Yeah.
And then my sister, who already lived down here, I ended up staying with her for like a year after that. And that's how I ended up moving back here. It's because my car exploded. So I basically, when that happened, I called my boss up in Indiana and I was like, hey, my car exploded. I think I'm just going to live here. I quit.
Oh my God. My car exploded and it's caused me to rethink some things. Rethink my trajectory.
I was like, maybe this is just where I'm supposed to be. I'll take a hint.
Yeah.
So college, this is where I was getting. College never happened there. And then it was after the car exploding that I ended up doing AV stuff.
Yeah.
Because an internet friend that I had met a year or so prior to the explosion happened to live like 5 minutes from me. And we didn't realize it till we met at a concert. And we were like, oh, you're the guy from the internet. Crazy.
Right.
So anyway, he texted me one day, months after the explosion.
Yes.
And was like, hey man, my pastor son-in-law lives in a place called Cumming, Georgia, which was literally the city that I live in. And he was like, and he's looking for guys to work for him doing like home theater stuff, I think. I don't know how much it pays or anything, but you can send your resume to this email. Yeah. And so I did, knowing nothing about the job, and got no response back. And so for like 9 months, I think, I just floated from like Dick's Sporting Goods to Subway to Sprouts Farmers Market, doing different jobs. Until one day, like 9 months later, I got a call out of the blue from the guy I had emailed. And he was like, hey man, I got your email with your resume. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, so this is the job. We do like AV installs in churches. He's like, I can pay you this much starting out, and I need you to know whether or not you want to do this within the next 2 hours, because I need to put you on a plane to Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Okay. I was like, sure, I'll do it. So that's how I started out doing this.
Wow. Sometimes life is living you. It's so crazy. Right. Yeah.
So then I was doing that a couple years, and by that time officially dating, the girl.
Okay. So we have to stop here for a second.
Okay.
So you keep referring to her as the girl. So I'm assuming that this didn't work out at some point, or you're just protecting identities.
Well, both.
Sure. Of course.
Anyway.
Okay. Moving on. Yeah. So they put you on a plane to Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah. So I can get into that, too. So I had barely ever flown before in my life. Yeah. So I was no expert at how to navigate airports for like a business setting or anything.
Yeah.
So I missed my flight.
Oh, no.
I missed it by like 5 minutes. Which was super embarrassing. So then I had to wait for the next flight out, which was hours later. So I ended up getting there after the workday had ended. It was like, I think my plane landed at like 6 or 7 in the evening in Pittsburgh.
So just excellent first impression.
Yeah. I'd never met any of the people I'd worked with, never seen them before.
Yeah.
It was just that one phone call. And so that was just crazy awkward.
Yes, of course.
But, it all worked out. So, anywho,
yes.
After a year or two of that, my girlfriend's parents kept putting pressure on her and me that they wanted me to go to college, and that they said that they wouldn't give their blessing for us getting married if I hadn't gone to college.
Yes. That, I mean, that's, It feels kind of Little House on the Prairie kind of thinking there. But I'm not. The other thing is like I don't have a daughter. I don't have kids. I feel like it would already weird me out if I had like, created another human with somebody and then all of a sudden this other human wants to come along and like be romantically
with
involved
his exploding
with them.
cars. Yeah. I don't blame him. But at the time too, we were being subcontracted by this company who was paying us out the wazoo. I wish I had saved my money. I was blowing it on my girlfriend at the time. But I mean, I was making bank. I was making more than my mom and her husband combined. Man. Anyway, so the irony was they wanted me to go to college.
That's interesting. I mean, you could have shown them your tax return, your tax forms.
I told them. Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't get returns, man. I'm still owing every year quite a bit. I mean, I told them. Well, I told her.
Right.
But I was like, I mean, do they not understand how much money I'm making without getting into crazy debt going to college? But after a long time of arguing about it, I finally broke down. I was like, fine, if that's what it takes, fine. So I quit my job that I loved. And I signed up for classes at University of North Georgia here.
Yep.
Got my student ID, got a job at Publix, where at that time I had hair like to my nipples.
Yeah. Of course.
And so at Publix, you can't have long hair or a beard. So I had to shave and cut all my hair off. Did that. And the day after I did that, my girlfriend broke up with me.
Oh, wow.
And so I quit my job, cut off all my hair, and
you were ready to become a different person.
Yeah. Yep. And she broke up with me. And I was like, okay, fuck this. So I quit Publix after working one day. I had like 1 day of training.
Yeah.
And quit. And then called my old boss back and was like, hey, man, this is really embarrassing.
Yeah.
Would you mind taking me back?
Yeah.
And he did take me back. So now I've been doing this again ever since then. So that's my college experience. So I canceled all my classes before they ever started. So I never paid a cent, but I got a student ID, which gets me discounts at places.
Yes. So, discounts.
Life hack for anyone out there. If you want some discounts, sign up for college classes, get your ID, then cancel your classes.
Yes. When I was teaching at the college here, I have my ID that I would use pretty much weekly to get, because there's always like this weird 5% discount that they'll give you somewhere. We're getting discounts on things like oil changes. We would get like season passes for snowboarding at like a discounted rate. I mean, it was like, we definitely milked that cow for a little while. So you're absolutely right.
Great.
So that's like, that seems a little bit fascinating to me. Obviously, relationships are super fucking complicated, or they can be, and everybody has like their own side of the story. So I don't in any way mean to like talk shit about your girlfriend. Who knows what's going on in her life or in her family, or what it's like growing up with parents like hers. But this seems like a really big deal to feel like, well, I'm on this trajectory in life right now, but to be acceptable to this family, or for this family to believe that I have the wherewithal or the gumption or, the drive to kind of make it work, I'm willing to fit myself into a completely different narrative for my life to make this work. It seems like even making a decision like that would put a strain on a relationship to begin with.
Yeah, it probably would.
Well, I mean, you would know.
I mean, it did. There wasn't enough time to see if it did, really.
Yeah.
It all happened so quick. But I will say, in all fairness,
yes,
the timing is kind of funny. Like a couple weeks ago, I did get a letter in the mail from her apologizing for all the crap that she put me through with that. So,
wow, a handwritten letter, an email.
It was a paper letter. I mean, it was typed, but
yes.
but yes. So to her credit, she, all these years later, realizes that was kind of a dick move. But
man, that's so awesome. I love that kind of stuff. I love seeing people grow up. I love seeing their hearts change and become more kind, more empathetic. Yeah. I'm totally that person. I have a lot of those stories. I have relationships that I wish I could write letters for now. There's definitely been times where I'm like, I was just young and stupid and had no idea what I was doing. I had no like emotional toolkit to handle what was happening in an adult way. And so people end up paying the price for that. Yeah, I feel you, man. But that's really cool. What do you feel like, if there is a takeaway at this point in your life right now? And this is like a few years ago this happened, I'm assuming. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So like, is there like a lesson that you feel like you carry with you into future relationships? Or do you think about starting or ending relationships differently now since you had that experience?
Yes, for sure. That whole thing changed me a lot, for the better. I feel like I'm way more confident in who I am now and what I want to do. And a big principle of mine personally is just honesty in every situation with everyone. And part of that is, not just catering to everybody's whims. I mean, you and I both grew up in evangelical circles. Yes. And so at the time when this whole thing happened, when I did like quit my job and cut my hair and everything, what was going on in my mind was like, well, this is me like serving and, being selfless and showing my sacrificial love. Right? Yes. But there's a time and place for that. And I feel like I have a way better balance on that now. That's the weird thing, or one of the weird bits of residue that I feel like you get growing up in that kind of Protestant evangelical mindset is you're constantly kind of taught that you're always wrong. That every time, that you always have to be kind of checking yourself, that you can't trust yourself, that you can't trust your heart or your feelings, and not in a Star Wars kind of way, just in like a in this weird sort of churchy way of like you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. It gets like drilled into you that you need to be a man of God, and that here's what that looks like. And so for me personally, I definitely found myself in a relationship where I was really young, but I had all of this weight, all of this like information, all this residue that I still had from like growing up in the church, where I was thinking through this relationship way, way too hard. Like, and every time there was a problem or an issue or conflict in the relationship, it was always like, oh my God, well, this is totally my fault. And you might remember some of this rhetoric, but it's like, if I submit myself to God, if I let him do the work on me, if I'm constantly just beating myself up and assuming that I'm wrong and all of these things and praying about it, maybe I can pray my way out of this, instead of just saying like, look, I'm young, I'm stupid, I don't really know a whole lot about the world, and this relationship is becoming kind of complicated. So maybe we just let each other go. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe we move on with our lives. Maybe we don't have to find our identities in each other, and it's not up to us to make this thing work, at least at this point in our lives. I think there's a healthy balance for sure. Yeah. Between the two extremes. Yeah. But that's probably the biggest thing I've taken away for sure. Well, I'm just happy you didn't die in a fucking car fire. Man, there have been so many times I should have died. Like a year before that car explosion, I got T-boned while I was on a bicycle. And oh my gosh. Yeah. No, not a scratch from that either. So I don't know. There have been many instances like that. Oh my gosh. And As Angels Among Us plays in the background, Right. Yeah. Actually, here's a fun fact. So do you listen to Group Love at all? Oh, or their first album? Yeah, okay. Big fan. So the closing track on Never Trust Happy Song is what I was listening to in my headphones when I got T-boned, and it was right at the climactic moment in the song where I don't know, it's maybe a minute and a half in. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. But it's like it's soft the whole time. And then all of a sudden, all the instruments just kick in and it's really loud. And that's when I got hit. And I thought that was the coolest thing when it happened. I was like, I'm in a freaking movie right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like that would have made me really nervous to get to the chorus of any song. Like have this PTSD of like, oh my God, no chorus, and just keep it down here. Well, man, you've had an oil change that completely changed your life. You've had a relationship that took you off of a totally different trajectory. What I really love is that you seem to have a lot of these opportunities that just kind of come your way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without actively seeking any of them out. They just all sort of happen.
Yeah. I think that's influenced a lot of how I live too. I tend to just go with the flow a lot, which is really cliche to say, but in all honesty, I kind of do. And that's part of why I'm mostly okay with this whole Corona crap that we're going through.
Well, yeah. And I think
like, I feel like I've been through so much crap and it always ends up making my life better later. So
yeah, so when you say go with the flow, like, of course, that's like it's a cultural trope, like just go with the flow. But there's a difference between being completely apathetic to everything happening and being actively accepting of the things that are happening.
That's very true. For sure. Apathy was a big struggle of mine when I was younger, for sure. In certain regards. I mean, I'm also like extremely emotional, so it's not like I was a robot, but
what do you feel like caused you to be apathetic, or why do you think apathy was easier for you? Did you have something happen? Was there a
No,
point?
I think honestly, I think it gets kind of hazy with the whole go with the flow mentality. I think they blend in some areas. I think if you get too comfortable with going with the flow, you can become apathetic.
Sure.
I think a lot of it was a faith like a child sort of thing. I think I was like, oh, and I still am this way. I still am a believer and I still go to now a Southern Baptist church. But as a kid, I think I was very like, it's in God's hands, just flipping off the world. Like I can do anything. I'm not going to die unless he wants me to. And I mean, in a certain regard, I still feel that way. But I think that can lead to apathy if I'm not careful. So
yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot of times when I'm experiencing apathy in my life, or when I find myself in that state, I feel like it comes from this place of I don't want to care about this because I don't want to be disappointed. Or I don't want to care about this thing because I don't want to lose control of it, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like apathy comes from a whole lot of different places. Like apathy's
it's
just
safer.
Right. It's just a symptom of something internally going on.
Right.
That's like probably a much more interesting conversation than apathy itself.
Right.
You're great, Stephen. I'm happy that you're alive and that you're here and that we, I totally just like lit into this conversation without thanking you for supporting our last Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, of course.
That was very, 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 very kind of you. And I'm so glad that we get to spend some time now doing some Eleventy life stuff.
Yeah. No, you guys have been, your music has been part of my soundtrack in my life since high school. So Adventures in Evil was a big deal to me in my angstier days. So
oh, that's very kind of you to say. I feel very honored to have been a part of your life in that way, I guess, peripherally, if that's how you say that word. So what kind of stuff were you into growing up? I mean, we know that you don't have great taste in music because you were into our record, but what other things were you digging at the time or relating to?
Honestly, pretty much the same stuff I like now. My tastes, haven't shifted so much as they've just grown.
Sure.
I feel like I like more than I used to like, but I still like the same things I used to like. But
yeah.
So back then I was listening to a lot of Anne Boleyn, Hawk Nelson, Eleventyseven, House of Heroes, like Goatee Records, Tooth and Nail Records.
Yes.
Both of those together, Solid State. What was really influential on me musically in middle school and high school, when, that's when everybody starts like really finding their taste in music.
Yeah.
But there's a radio station, a local little privately owned radio station in Lafayette, Indiana. And that's where Jeremy Camp and his family is from. And so his parents owned the radio station. And everything it was a coffee house. It was called Sacred Grounds. Oh
my God, we've played.
Have you played there? Okay.
Oh
yes.
my gosh, that is such a blast from the past. But now I remember, like I'm sitting in that cafe. His sister introduces herself to us. Oh yeah, now I've got a whole chapter on this now. Okay,
there you go.
You were saying, so this is Lafayette.
So I grew up in that city.
Okay.
And they have Sacred Grounds still does have their own little radio station in Lafayette, 97.7. And they played their playlist was amazing because like the scope of it, like most radio stations, I feel like play the same 20 songs over and over for a couple months or whatever it is. But 97.7's playlist was probably like 250 songs at a time. So it's way bigger, and it was just, it was Eleventyseven and, House of Heroes, Reliant K, and just all that sort of stuff. And I couldn't hear that anywhere else. So that was huge to me. And then every night after 10 p.m., it was like from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. or something. It was nothing but like hardcore and screamo Christian music. So that was also influential. That's what I went to sleep to every night, was people screaming in my ears. So
yeah, I always find that kind of interesting because I for sure, like growing up in the church, we were very aware of like the Christian radio stations. We were very aware of like the Christian subgenres. Tooth and Nail was a huge influence on us for many, many, many reasons. I feel like what ended up happening for us is we always kind of headed towards those fringe bands. Like we loved all the Reliant K records as they were coming out. Like we went to a bunch of those shows, ended up playing a lot of those shows later, but we were always kind of interested in the stuff that was kind of bucking the system a little bit. Like we never gave a shit about Jeremy Camp or like Casting Crowns or Mercy, but like any of those kind of, we always felt like it was super vanilla. It was really boring, really uninteresting.
The CCM stuff,
Yeah, all that CCM stuff. And we're like, we'll never fit in with that crowd. I think just because we're so disinterested.
Right.
Yeah, in whatever they're doing. But having said that, all of these bands that were kind of on, like if you're really looking for something that's interesting by comparison to that, there was Tooth and Nail. And they were taking chances on bands that were harder or edgier or not as religiously based. You know, like weren't necessarily like trying to have Jesus pep rallies every 10 minutes in the record.
Like Under Oath is like 99% atheists, all except for Aaron. So there's a lot of that. Tooth and Nail had some of the, as a Christian kid growing up, had some of the hardest or most difficult lyrics to persuade parents into approving. Because there would still be there's a band, I don't know if you ever played with or know the Classic Crime.
Yeah, I think we did a few shows with them. I don't know any of them personally.
They had an album with a song on it that said the word hell in the song. And not talking about the place. And that was actually a big deal, like for opening my mind, I guess, because I was like, wait a minute, but like the message of the song is still, within all the morals and principles of everything I'm told to believe. They just used a word to communicate that. And so that was a big deal to me. But so stuff like that. And I remember sometimes Tooth and Nail bands would, like in the lyrics, would say, oh my God, but not in a worshipful way. And so they were pretty edgy if you grew up
Yes.
like that. So
that's one of the things that struck me so oddly about that whole subculture is that you have these subsequent generations of kids who you were literally teaching through shame to censor themselves and to censor what they get exposed to. And it's all kind of done under this guise of, well, you can't let the world corrupt you, and you can't let all of these other ways of viewing the world enter into your life, into your mode of thinking, into your habits, because the devil's out there and he'll find any way to rot your brain from the inside out. So it's not only is it shame, it's also fear. Also, a lot of it's just not true. Like, the world is an immensely amazing and beautiful and lush and dark place. It's all of it. It's just like who we are as people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, I was having this conversation with a couple of friends of ours for a podcast that we recorded yesterday. And it's like in an effort to sanitize everything that people get exposed to, it does create a very dangerous subculture and bubble in which kids have no frame of reference for what the world is actually like or how to operate in it.
Yeah, it can be like that.
Yeah.
It is a lot of the time. It's not always.
Sure.
I was blessed enough to have a mom who she's very into like free thought.
You love your mom. This is like the second time that you've like
She's
high-fived
great,
your
man.
mom on the podcast.
I wouldn't be who I am today without her. So
I love it.
So although she was strict about things in a very evangelical way, she loosened up as time went on. I mean, when I was a little kid, like Harry Potter and Pokemon were a no-go.
Right.
But there came a point in like middle school when she was like, "Oh, forget that. Yeah, those are fine. I was dumb." So, but no,
That takes a strong woman.
No, but to her credit, lyric wise, even though she didn't like musically a lot of the music I listened to, she would always kind of listen to it, not say anything about it, and just, listen to the lyrics. She would never force me to explain lyrics to her, but you kind of feel like you have to in that situation as a kid in the Christian world. But I just remember she saw that I actually, was thinking about things, what I was watching in movies or whatever, and that I could distinguish good and bad in anything for myself.
That you had critical thinking skills, that you were a person in and of yourself who was developing their own ability to make judgments about things.
And so that can be done in the Christian subculture, but you're right. Oftentimes it's not. Yeah. So I have many friends who did not grow up as blessed. So
and I know I really do. I feel like you're exactly right. I had a very specific set of experiences, and so I do feel really impassioned when I'm talking about them. And what I don't mean to do is to like throw the baby out with the bathwater and to be like, well, it was like this for everybody. There's some people who I still even have a lot of people in my life who very much love being a part of that culture because there are some really healthy things about the community within those types. It really just depends on it's as diverse on the inside, as any person is. Things can become toxic very quickly, and they can also become very beautiful very quickly and uplifting. And so I don't mean in any way to sound like I'm just drinking a lot of haterade over here. But for me personally, I feel like I do love being able to call a spade, especially when there are kids, when kids are on the line, when impressionable kids are being fed a whole lot of information that is going to cause them to have anxiety later.
I know too many people who have gone off the deep end in life. And I think it was mostly due to how strict our Christian environment was. So I get that for sure.
Yeah, man. So you right now you still subscribe to Christianity?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. So tell me what that looks like for you as Stephen.
Well,
it's clearly been a journey for you.
A broad question.
Yeah.
Very broad question. I don't know. To me, I don't even know. Can you narrow that down?
Yeah, absolutely. It's no secret. Like for people that listen to the podcast, I'm not a subscriber to Christianity,
right?
But I'm also not. I'm not a hater of Christianity, and I'm not out to try to undermine an entire religion. I'm like, to each his own. If it works for you, awesome. That's great. We are products of the things of our journeys. Yeah. And at this specific, and Christianity was a massive, massive part of my journey of getting here. And so that will always be a part. I will always have a soft spot for that. I will always have the teachings of Christ will always mean something very personal to me, even though my interpretation of them has definitely changed and morphed as I've lived life into something different. But for you personally, what is Christianity to you? Is it sort of this catch-all for a lot of the moral outlook that you may have on life? Or
I think to me personally, I really don't like the word Christianity because I think it's a culture, mostly these days at least. Yeah. And I disagree with a lot of the culture.
Yeah.
I do personally believe in the narrative of Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
I believe he was a real man, and really also divine. I believe that whole narrative still. But I personally just try to, in my life, live. My main philosophy in life is to try to live like we're still in Genesis 1. So like the whole Eden narrative. To me, I think that's what we were made for. The earth was made good and beautiful.
Yeah.
And God's intent was for us to just live in it and enjoy it. But to do so in a loving way with everyone. So to me, Christianity, or my, I guess, religious beliefs are more of just, live life, enjoy life. Life is beautiful. Enjoy music and movies and sports and food and, there's a poem by a guy with a very creative name called Levi the Poet. But there's a part in it that I just love. But the whole poem is basically about being, enjoying life and not succumbing to legalism. And he says, like, I want to drink wine. I want to dance to the melody, drink wine and get drunk and rejoice over my kids with laughter.
Yeah.
That's got to come from somewhere. That's got to mean something.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, just enjoy life and live out what in the Christian world we call the fruits of the Spirit. So, be patient, be kind, be gentle. To me, that's what Christianity is those two things. So enjoy life and don't be a dick.
Yeah. Enjoy life. Don't be a dick.
Unless it's necessary. I mean, there are times I think that it is necessary to, stand your ground on things. Yeah. And not be a pushover, as we've discussed earlier. So this sounds like
this is kind of your North Star. Like, I think for a lot of people, Christianity is kind of how people make sense of the mystery.
I would say my North Star is Jesus Christ. And the whole Christianity thing, I think, can be a distraction. But
interesting. I think there are a lot of people that like hearing that from you.
Probably a lot of people that don't like hearing it.
Well, maybe. To each his own. But yeah, that's wonderful, Stephen. And I really appreciate you sharing that with me and with everybody on 11.
Listening.
Yeah. So tell me this, because we're obviously running the time here. What's next for you in life? What's the next big thing that you're looking forward to?
Right now, my next goal is really small. I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but is to pay off my car because I don't fully
Before
own
it
it.
explodes.
Yeah. Pay off my car and then buy a plot of land and start building like a cabin. That's like
Ooh.
what I want to do really bad.
Wow.
That's so right now, life to me is, saving up money,
Yes.
paying off my debts.
Yes.
And then with the goal of, getting my own piece of land and, hopefully a woman someday, but we'll see what happens.
It's your little house on the prairie.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's a cabin, a back 40 and a good woman.
That's right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Just working and, writing and just living life, seeing what happens, I guess. I don't know. Nothing crazy planned.
Man, I think that's kind of a beautiful thing to go after. I definitely have lived a lot of that. It was around the same time that Adventures in Evil was coming out. That was my thing too. I was like, I want a plot of land and I want to build a cabin. We ended up being able to do all of that with the help of a lovely lady in the meantime. But yeah, it's like, I love those kinds of simple dreams to have. Being a rock star is not a simple dream. It has a lot of like ego tied into it and a lot of insecurity and a lot of self-worth issues tied to it and
business and politics
and like, oh my God, it's a whole thing. But like just having a little piece of property and fabricating a home, building shelter, doing these primal things that are kind of written into you, they can be rewarding in a way that a lot of those other things are not. And so I wish you all of the best on your journey to finding love and wood. So we've totally gone the time. So I didn't know if you had any last minute things that you wanted to discuss or anything that was like really weighing on your heart, as the evangelicals would say, that you weren't able to address in our time together.
Not that I can think of. I honestly didn't come into this with any expectations whatsoever. So other than I expected myself to say a lot and regret it at the end.
Of course.
So don't know how well I've done with that, but no, I can't think of anything that's weighing on my heart.
Well, I love that. I love that you do not have a heavy heart and that you came into this just wanting to, being willing to just experience it and not feel like you had to control it like I always feel like I'm trying to do.
Well, see, I let you control it. So it's a win-win. It's a symbiotic pod relationship.
You're a sweetheart, and I hope that everybody that gets to listen to this podcast has found you as charming as I have and looks you up on the internet. Befriends you.
Well, I like being friends with people, so
that's awesome. Well, thanks for being on here, Stephen.
Yeah,
and I hope we
thanks
get to
for
do
having
it again.
me. Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for talking.
Eleventy Life is a production of Rock Candy Recording.